All right.
Ready to rock and roll?
Let's do this thing.
Let's do it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Odum and Andrea show. This is the podcast where I sit down with my beautiful wife, Andrea, and we talk about people that have done some truly inspiring and amazing shit, and that maybe inspire us to do something very similar. Just people that inspire
awesome
us.
stuff,
Right?
yeah.
They just do awesome stuff, and it's just cool to read, and it's cool to talk about. Because I don't know. You look at the news these days, it always seems like there's a bunch of negative stuff. So
Let's talk about positive stuff.
Focus on the positive. Focus on
Yeah.
people that are doing something with their lives, which
Absolutely.
is really cool, which always resonates with us, and hopefully it resonates with you. And if it does, check out more of our podcasts at odumandandrea.com. We have, I don't know, over a dozen podcasts now.
Yeah.
We're getting into this. This is kind of cool.
I know.
I think this is number,
It's fun.
15, 16?
16.
I can't even remember.
I think
It's crazy.
16. I know.
So lots of stuff. So for today,
Yes.
we are going to be reading.
No.
Reading.
We're not going to read it.
Well, we're going to talk about it, right? You've read it. I
I've read
haven't.
it,
I don't know
yes.
anything about this.
Mm-hmm.
We did this thing before where, was it 2 episodes ago? It was another guy who did like a Mount Everest thing.
Yeah.
So here we are
Oh,
again
sorry.
doing something with a topic of somebody that's already done before, which is rowing, which is interesting because it's not like it's a favorite topic of mine or whatever.
No.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what people are doing. It's that they're doing really cool stuff. It
Yes.
just happens to be that happens to be sport. But I mean, it would be nice to like.
We just did Adam
do-
Schultz doing his
canoeing or whatever.
Yeah.
But
This
that
is-
being
this is
said, it's
different.
the
This
story
is
of the
very
person and
different.
whatever. So this
Yeah.
will be interesting. So with that being said, this is just keep rowing. Oh, Jesus, small font. Lesson. Oh, what are my glasses? I can't see.
The old man.
What does it say? Okay. Lessons from the Atlantic Ocean by the youngest person to row it alone. That's crazy. Sounds like she's going to row across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
And you're worried. See, I'm saying, let's just go buy a boat and let's go sail across the Atlantic Ocean. And you're like, oh, I'm
Nope.
worried. This person, look at this person. Look at her. Did I press a button? Is that focused? If she can travel across in a kayak, canoe? I don't even know what she's going to be in.
It's a rowboat.
A rowboat. I want to do it in a sailboat. If she can do it, we can do it.
No.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be buying a boat. I'll just have to convince Andrea.
Not happening.
Anyways, it's written by Kate Spotz.
Spotz.
Of course. There's no L there at all. I don't know why I said that.
It's weird.
And Mark Bowles. Yeah. So, there's a little quote here. What?
No. Okay, Grandpa, put on your glasses.
She used her raw courage to row the Atlantic alone for 70 days to make sure people who will never know her name have clean water to drink. Well, that's a good goal. I guess clean water is important. I don't know.
I'm going to need that.
You don't need that?
I'm going to need it.
All right. Which hand?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
Either way, I can
All right.
use
So,
both.
what's it called again? What's the book called?
Just keep rowing.
Just Keep Rowing.
Indeed.
So, just take it away. Let us know the story. I guess I kind of maybe did a little bit of a spoiler.
You
I
did.
guess
That's
for me,
okay.
but
That's okay. That's all right.
well,
So,
let's hear it.
okay.
Fix my sleeve
So,
here.
Katie Spotz, she doesn't give too much of like an intro into like how she grew up or kind of like anything about that. But she did talk about like different endurance events that she did before her row. So she
Can I ask you just maybe to back
Yeah,
up? Like,
of course.
where's she born? She's Canadian, American, Australian?
I was just gonna tell you.
All right.
So she was born in Ohio.
Okay. She's American.
She's American.
America.
So, and she lived really close to Lake Erie in Ohio.
Okay.
So
It's like practically Canadian.
practically Canadian, really. So she did her first endurance event for charity when she was 19 in 2006, and it
Wow.
was a cross-country U.S. bike race from Seattle to Washington D.C. So that's it was
That's
like
far.
3,300 miles.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
5,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
This is with the miles. Didn't we
I
already
know,
go
because
through
that's
this?
how I know, but that's how they write it, right? Because they're American.
Oh.
So, and the whole point was to raise money for the American Lung Association, and so one of her grandmothers died. I think one or both of them died of lung cancer. So
Were they
that
smokers?
I probably
Yeah.
you would think like kind of back in the day they are. So, and it took her 48 days to do that.
To cycle across.
Yeah, and she averaged 83 miles a day. So, yeah, and so
Yeah,
she
it's
raised
like 140 kilometers, something
Yeah,
like that,
something like
150. I don't know.
And then so she raised $6,000 doing that. And then in 2007, she did a 100-kilometer ultramarathon in Melbourne, Australia, to raise money for Oxfam, which they do all kinds of charity work for like poverty and social injustice and that sort of thing. So that was her second one. And
so basically, she's really athletic.
yeah. The other one she did was she swam the Allegheny River in Pennsylvania. And so it took her a month to swim 353 miles. So that's how far she did. And that was in 2008. So she's always like, yes, into kind of the endurance and just to kind of push her limits and see what she could do. So
and this is at a young age too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just something that she was just kind of born with this drive or something like that. Like there's nothing that you can say in the book that like drove her to want to do this kind of stuff. Because not everyone's like, you know what I want to do? I just think I want to bike 140 kilometers every single day for the next 50 days, you know?
Yeah. So
because it's not easy. That hurts the ass a little bit.
a little bit. Yeah. So like I said, she doesn't say anything about like growing up or any of that, like what kind of pushed her into these kind of endurance sports. So I can't really, even the podcast, like she did a podcast on Rogan, I think it was last year.
Okay.
And even then, like they didn't really talk anything about like her childhood or growing up or like kind of what pushed her to do these crazy feats.
Does it sound though, if you had to guess, that she had like a typical middle class kind of upbringing?
Yeah,
nothing too crazy.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. She has a younger sister, and I think her brother's older than her. So nothing crazy.
It's either nothing crazy or something so crazy that they don't want to say.
Yeah. So she does some sort of like school exchange where she's in Australia for a little bit, and that's when she does her 100K run in Melbourne there. But she ends up talking about endurance events with this guy on the bus, and he's like, oh, I knew
the bus
on a bus, just like a bus. And so he was just like, oh, then yeah, endurance stuff is really cool. I had a friend and her mom, and they rode across the Atlantic together, and then kind of like a light bulb.
Rode?
Across.
Oh, road, like rowboat.
Road, yeah.
Like road, I'm still thinking on the bike thing. I'm like, how do they bike across the Atlantic? That'd be interesting.
And so she just couldn't get it out of her head. Like she just was like, I need to do it. And what's interesting is that
I just need to do this.
yeah. So she starts kind of like looking it up, and more people have climbed Mount Everest and have rowed across the Atlantic Ocean.
What about the Pacific even?
I don't know. Because she did not talk about that because she didn't row it, right?
Yeah.
So
there's probably still the same amount.
Probably.
Not very many people, because why would you want to do that?
Exactly.
Is it easier? I think maybe Atlantic is shorter. I think it's shorter, right? Like, I mean, across.
100% it is. Yeah. The Pacific is huge.
They're all pretty big.
They're all pretty big. So she talks about then like trying to like prepare for the row, and so she's trying to look for like a boat. And so she finds this boat. It's in Costa Rica, and she's trying to get it from Costa Rica. And I don't know why she's like obsessed with this one boat, but she was just obsessed with it.
Is it just? I mean, it's a specific boat too.
Yes.
So I imagine there's boats where, because there needs a place to sleep and to keep your food and all that kind of stuff. Because is the idea to be like a self-contained trip?
Like 100% unsupported.
Right.
Yes. Yes. So, and
can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
What do you do when you're rowing, right? Because then you have to sleep and like you're drifting.
That's a really good question.
Do you just drift?
I actually don't know. It's a really good question. She didn't talk about that at all, but that's a really good question.
I
didn't
imagine,
even think about that.
I mean, imagine you're just following the current, because you can follow the current all the way to, the other side or whatever, because there's currents that circulate all, so I guess if you're sleeping, you're just going to be going in a specific direction, still around your goal.
I don't know.
Like, I'm sure she probably saw like GPS or whatever, so she could kind of know where she is, right? But
I don't actually know. It's a really good question.
Because
she doesn't talk about that at all.
It's always the questions I always had, like, well, when, the guy who swam across Great Britain or around, they're just like, oh, well, he's doing, it's like, what are they doing when they stop and they're sleeping? So like, are they anchoring, or are they just
I think for sure they did.
So that you're starting and stopping from the same spot. But she's obviously not going to be starting and stopping
at the same
spot because she's in the middle of the ocean.
So
there's no anchoring. I mean, like, you could, but then why would you carry that extra
weight? No, you don't want to carry that extra weight.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I don't really know.
So I'm not.
It's a really good question.
You're just drifting.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this to take it away. Like, oh, well, you didn't. No, not at all. Because you're you're rowing the Atlantic all by yourself, right? It's impressive. So if you're drifting, I mean, you're just drifting, right?
Yeah.
And you could even drift off course. So
yeah.
anyways,
So it ends up this boat. She's trying to get it from Costa Rica to the States.
like, is it expensive?
Oh yeah, of course it's expensive. But so it just doesn't end up happening. But she's okay with it because she's just like, sometimes when things fall apart, it's so that better things can kind of fall together. And I just really like that attitude.
Very good lesson learned.
Yeah. And so the boat that she wanted, I think it was $40,000. Yeah. So, but she always talks about
this is American, so that's like $10 billion.
no, maybe this was
Canadian.
the boat that she actually did was $40,000. Anyways, it was a lot of money. Whatever, the boat was a lot of money. And so, but the one thing that she does say is like these solo expeditions are rarely solo. They're always like a team sport. There's so many people that come together to help you get the money, do the prep work, and then help you when you're on this row, right? Or whatever individual thing. Like the Iron Cowboy, right? He had so many support people around him. It's not just a solo thing.
Yeah, well, he's the one who's doing it, but yeah.
Yeah, but you have a lot of that support network and kind of thing. So she did have like a lot of sponsors that helped her, that would donate the funds or do like in-kind donations, like for her supplies and stuff that she needed. So the boat that she actually ended up getting was made by a British boat designer and yacht racer. So this boat is like a custom build, and it was designed as a one-person rowboat to withstand the ocean. And it was made, I don't know if you would know anything about this, but it's made of Eric's foam and nano shell injected with experimental epoxy and unidirectional S-glass. I don't know anything about it. It just makes it sound like it's lighter than your average rowboat. And so it was created actually for another person. His name's Paul Ridley, that did a transatlantic row, and he was raising money for cancer. So that's what he did it. So she bought it from him.
Right.
So
he successfully...
Yeah.
That other guy.
He successfully did. Yeah.
And when people do the Atlantic, do they go, is it always from North America to Europe, or do some people go from Europe to North America?
Neither of those actually. For hers, I don't know for anyone else's, but for hers, she started in Dakar, Senegal, which is it's in Africa. It's the westernmost point in Africa. And so she went right across from there, and her goal was to get to Cayenne, French Guiana. That's not where she ended up, and we'll get there, but that was her goal. So I brought up the map just so you can kind of see.
And that's just an island somewhere off of South America?
It is actually a country in South America. French Guiana is a country in South America.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So you can see?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what her route.
Okay, yeah. So it's a little bit of a shorter route.
Yeah.
I say
shorter,
but it's still looking at the distance here.
So
it's looking like it's
almost
4,000 kilometers.
So it's almost 2,500 miles, almost 2,500.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So that's what she was gonna do. Sorry, just let me get back to my notes. So then she got the boat, and so she was doing practice rows on Lake Erie since she was so close. And
like rowing across.
Yeah, I don't know if I think she might have stayed close to the shore, just for safety reasons.
Just rowing.
She didn't end up crashing it at one point because the waves, she got caught up in some bad weather on Lake Erie, and the waves were ridiculous and just carried her boat and smashed it on the rocks. She was okay, but the boat, she had to take the boat to get them to fix it because it was. And
she was practicing on the real boat.
Yeah. So, and this was on Lake Erie. So, but she would do like 10-hour rows on Lake Erie and stuff like that. So, and then obviously she's training on like the rowing machine as well to do.
I'm sure they have different types of rowing machines as well too, not just your standard one at the gym. She probably has something maybe more customized to how she rows or whatever.
I doubt it, but
oh really? Okay.
Because she doesn't have a lot of money, right? So she's only 22 when she does this.
She's still living at home.
Yeah, she's still a student. Like I don't know if she had finished her school yet or not. So one thing she says, and this was really interesting, she talks about like procrastination and like just getting like the impetus to kind of like start something, and
like the start of the day, knowing that you have a 10-hour row ahead of you,
or just like, you know, just to start anything really. And so she says procrastination is the thief of time. And so, but her procrastination is like very specific, and she says that she doesn't want to start something until she's confident she can do it perfectly. And I was like, oh, wow. Reminds me of somebody I know.
Hey.
You are exactly the same
Interesting.
way. Yeah. So she says, while striving for perfection may be admirable, the hesitation and inaction it can cause is not.
Well, it's paralyzing.
Yes.
It's paralyzing.
Yes. So she just kind of put her her training on autopilot. She just got up and did it. And so like, that's kind of how like I do my workouts, right? It's just, you don't have a choice. Your alarm goes, you're up, I have all my clothes ready to go. And it's just, you just go and you just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting because she talks about motivation. And like she says, like, motivation rarely comes before a desired goal. I don't think I've ever been motivated to row 10 hours in my life. So like you said, right? And so you develop positive mental habits that align with your goals. And then you learn to like, just do it.
Yeah.
So it reminds me a lot too of like Goggins, which eventually we'll get to him. We keep saying that, but we'll get to him.
Maybe do that one.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later. So we just get it done.
But she talked about it when she was on Rogan too, about like, it's like, you're not into it. Like it takes a little bit, like the first mile or so, like it takes a bit to get into it. And then once you get in, then it's just like pushing something down a hill, right? It takes that initial push to go, but then it gets that momentum,
it's friction. Think of a big mass sitting on, a concrete, right? Like it's hard to move. You say it doesn't budge. You have to put a lot more force to get it to go so you can break through that friction. And once you have that, it's just a little bit easier to get something to move, right? And once it's moving, then it has momentum.
Exactly.
So, but it's also interesting because I know firsthand, like when you're going for a workout, say you're on a treadmill or whatever it is, it's like that first minute or two, you're almost like, oh, this is so hard. I don't want to do this. How am I even going to get through it? And it's been like a minute in.
Yeah, I know.
But then you fight through that, and then all of a sudden, okay, it's not so bad. Your body just kind of warms up or whatever it is, and then you kind of get back into the zone or whatever.
Exactly.
And I think that's why developing good habits is such a difficult thing, because your brain is wired to just kind of take the easy way as soon as it recognizes any kind of resistance. And if it's not used to that kind of resistance, it's like, whoa, we need to stop this right away. And I think we've talked about stuff that's very similar to this when we're talking about weight loss and fitness and health, and that we're told and conditioned that, it's all willpower. The reason why you failed is because of, you didn't have the right willpower. But it's like the brain's mechanism is so wired against you if you're, what is it? Like, I can't remember, but it's like, if you go to the point where you're depriving yourself of calories too much or what have you, it's not a willpower to not eat. It's like your body physiological forces you to do that. And a lot of the times your body physiologically forces you to maybe want to give up or whatever.
Yes.
Not because you don't want it, but because your body's telling you to. But that all comes from training and building the right habits and all that kind of stuff to rewire yourself to be able to accomplish things that you never thought would be possible.
Yeah.
Like rowing across the Atlantic or what have you.
Yeah.
And anyway, a little bit of an aside there. I think I was kind of rambly there.
That's
but
okay. They weren't. No. So she said 7 people have died in attempting to row across the Atlantic.
Let me guess. Was that the Great Atlantic Row of '96?
But she said there have been 340 successful rows and then 200 unsuccessful. And if by completing the row, she's the 9th woman to do it solo. So just little. So out of like around things.
600 people have attempted.
Yeah.
So about half of them complete.
Yes. Yeah.
And half of them don't complete, and like a few perish.
Small percentage do not make it.
Well, so that's 7 out of 700. That's like 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty high. It's a high enough, rate of death.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Is that my math right? 1%? Yeah.
I don't know.
But 1% of 100 would be 1. So 700 would be 7. So yeah, maybe a little higher than 1% because it was 600. Yeah, that's. Yeah, it's crazy.
So she talks a lot about all the different things that she needed to know before starting on the trip, which you kind of have it in the back of your head, like, oh, you just have to be like in pretty good physical shape. But that's one thing. Yes. So there's mental stuff 100%. But then even like understanding the mechanics of rowing, understanding like how to use, like she has a solar desalinator, plus she has like a backup hand pump, plus then she even has like the ballast water in the boat is also fresh water. So it's like having like all those backups and stuff.
Yeah.
So
you need to learn how to navigate.
Yes. So she has
ocean,
GPS.
Whether it's with stars too or whatever.
Yeah. So she has GPS, but also she wanted to know that backup information because you can't count on things, right? What if something happens? You have to be prepared. first aid, survival skills, weather patterns, currents, like all of these different things.
Hunting fish. So did you watch Castaway to get some good tips?
No, but she did have one of the groups that was kind of like helping sponsoring her. She worked a lot with Rotary groups. They gave her like a little tennis ball, and I forget what his name was, like Wilson.
Oh yeah, they have Wilson tennis
yeah.
balls. Yeah.
So they named him like Wilson Jr. or something like that. It was just kind of cute. And so she had him, which was kind of cute. So so her first day she leaves and she did 44 miles in 10 hours of rowing. So it's like pretty good, I think.
I don't know I don't really know how to compare.
Yeah.
Especially since you're talking miles.
Yeah. So I guess, confused. Yeah. And so the big thing though, kind of, similar to Ross Edgley, is like she's having to watch for ships coming out of
at the start.
At the start, right? Yeah. And so she does have a little alarm indication that like a proximity type alarm that goes off, and so she had a couple of like alarms that went off, especially like at night, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different, and she talks even about like, especially as she's getting into South America, the waves were getting pretty big, and she said like, because her boat's smaller, it's like 19 feet, she would go down and be hidden in the waves if it was really wavy. So then the big ships weren't going to be able to see her. And like, if there's a big ship, it takes a little bit to turn that sucker.
So do those ships see her? Does she have basically like a beacon on her ships, on her boat, so that the other ships can see it on their,
Yeah, I think so.
I imagine so. Because I think you almost have to. I don't know. I'm trying to think for work because... I mean, we launch gliders and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they have any of those things that alert to ships, because we obviously move ours if ships are in the way. So even getting close is like it's
scary.
No, but I mean, it's like even kilometers. It's like you alert and you move away even when you're kilometers out.
Oh yes, yes. Absolutely.
So I imagine the same thing for ships. Like even if you're just a kilometer, it's like that's already close, right?
It's close
when you're talking about ocean stuff.
Because even she's saying like even to perform an emergency stop, it takes the boat 15 minutes to get to that emergency stop. Oh yeah. So you can still travel pretty far in that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like brakes in a car where it's just and you're stopped.
Yeah. So one of the milestones she hits on day 5 is actually she hits 100 miles, and apparently it's a milestone for her, because when most people quit the transatlantic row, it's before 100.
That's just like even at the start.
I know. So she kind of feels like good about that milestone because she gets
Why do you think people who decide to do it quit so early on? Is it kind of what we talked about before, where it's like it's kind of just at the start of it and you just realize that it's so hard and you just get mentally down, and
I think maybe
that something clicks in your brain that you've already quit even though you don't know it, kind of thing, you know?
I think a couple things. I think because she talks a lot about just the vastness and the sameness of the ocean, because once you get out past being able to see the coast, it's the same ocean and sky, and everything is the same. And I think not being able to see your goal, do you know what I mean? Like physically see it and to know like how far away it is, I think that would be daunting. And those are the people, it's just like she's just like taking it 1 mile at a time as she's rowing. That's all you can do to kind of keep that in mind. And then the other thing is you are completely alone and by yourself. It's not like with Iron Cowboy where you have people riding with you. You're doing it, but you have people riding with you, cheering you on. Like she didn't have any of that. You're just on your own. And that was one of the things she struggled with the most, was just being on her own and completely isolated from everybody. Right. She did keep in contact, like she did do like Twitter updates. She was able to do that, and every once in a while she was able to phone and she had
talk to people.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
Well,
right?
It still keeps your sanity a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. And her mom was really cute. Her mom wrote her 100 letters. So she had one to open every single day, because she thought her like outside goal was like 100 days for her to take 100 days. So like when she was packing all her food and everything, she packed for 100 days. Mm-hmm. And so her mom was really cute and wrote her like 100 letters.
It's interesting. If you think it's going to take you 100 days, do you not pack like 150 days worth of food or extra? Right? Like at NASA. I mean, that's different. They're in space, but they're like, okay, we have 2 weeks of mission. I think 4 weeks of food. No.
I think she thought that was extra for her. I think she thought she could do it like in
make 80 days. Here's 100. Okay, so that was already including.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So in
But I mean, worst case scenario, you can always just radio in and Coast Guard, and somebody will come and
yeah.
pick her
Of
up.
course, of course. So the book's set up really interestingly because it's set up like each day. So it took her 70 days to row. So each day she talks about like a different kind of lesson that she learned. So there's obviously there's 70 different lessons in there that she goes through.
Bring sunscreen when you're out in the ocean.
Yeah. So one interesting one that I saw was she has to actually go in the water and scrape barnacles off the bottom of the boat because obviously they're gonna create drag and then slow you down. So she has to go and do that, and so
they build up quite fast.
Apparently, it sounds like it. So she compares that to like eliminating like the negative forces in your life that are going to hold you back. So I thought that was kind of an interesting
how often did she have to do that?
She didn't say. She just talked about that one time. I don't know how often you would have to do it, to be honest. I don't know.
Would you be scared going into the water?
Yeah, and she was. Yeah, because she sees sharks that swim close to her.
Like all the time, eh?
Yeah.
Like all the time?
Often enough. Yeah, often enough.
But did you see other cool stuff too? Like that's the other thing.
So
I was going to ask that too, but you look at the movie, remember Life of Pi?
Yes.
Or like all the time. Well, not all the time. It doesn't make, but there's you whales or whatever, right? That are around you.
So she doesn't say anything about whales. There was
just anything, right? Like big, huge schools of fish that
Well, yeah, of course, and because of the shade that her boat created, there was lots of fish that would swim in the shade of her boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool.
Did she learn how to fish? Like, did she want to catch any fish?
No, she didn't fish. What was interesting, the biggest thing that she had to deal with was these flying fish. Like she's just like I didn't realize she's like I didn't realize like these flying fish like they'd wake me up. They were just, it was constant. Every morning I'd wake up and have to like freaking throw them out of the boat. Like they were there, they would hit me in the face, and she's like I never got used to it. It would freak me out like every time.
Of course, because you're just swimming. You're just rowing, and all of a sudden a fish just jumps in your face.
Yeah. So that one, there was like 3 Dorados. These like I forget what they're mahi, like you eat them, right? That's like a pretty good dish at a restaurant, mahi. Okay, so there are these Dorados, and so there was 3 that kind of would always follow her. She saw lots of different birds, and then lots of dolphins.
That's interesting, birds. Well, I guess if there's islands that are close by, right? So
well, no, you're in the middle of the Atlantic, and she's seeing these birds.
Well, that's what I mean. But there's islands all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
so
because birds need some kind of land, right?
Yeah.
But they could obviously swim and float around in the water. But
yeah, and then dolphins. She saw a lot of dolphins, and she said at one point,
Did she like reach up and touch anything?
No, but she's like, it's funny because she's like, you could tell like they were showing off. Because they would come around her and they would jump around and frolic and play. And she's like, it was so cool to see them. And there was, I think she got to a point where it was like a really tough point, but she hit a milestone and she wanted to celebrate. And then all of a sudden the dolphins were there and they were just like jumping. It was like they were celebrating with her. It was kind of cool to read that. So
did she jump in and swim?
Not with them. No. So
I feel like that's something I'd want to do.
I know I would too. Yeah.
Like, wait for me. Oh.
But she says like even like when she goes in to scrape these barnacles out, like she attaches like a tether to her so that she'll like drift away from your your own
then that's probably how like some of those guys could have died. Just like I just went for whatever, and then some swell, and then boom, the boat is like gone.
Yeah. So there's that. She goes in to like take a picture of the Dorados. I think the Dorados or something else. She goes to take a picture of them.
Like, does she have an underwater camera?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So she gets stung by a man-o-war jellyfish, which they're literally the worst ones to get stung. Well, one of them, not a box jellyfish.
Yeah, but they're just painful, but not toxic or deadly, I think.
No, they can be. They can be. But she had like all of her first aid stuff with her. Sorry. Yeah. So that was kind of interesting that she went through that. And so the one thing she talks about too is,
did she not see it, or
no, she didn't.
Just happened to be like a school of jellyfish around.
No, it was just one. She has a picture of it, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so she didn't. She just didn't see it, I guess. So yeah, because sometimes they can be small too, and because they're transparent, sometimes they're hard to see. Yeah. So, but so then some of the other things. So she talks about like all the food she has because she's like she has to eat like
A lot.
5,000 calories a day almost, like a lot. So she has like this huge list of like all the different foods that she's eating. And of course, like she can't have anything fresh, which was tough. I think at the beginning, maybe she had to cut like some fresh stuff.
Some bananas or whatever.
Yeah.
But you could even like, you'd love it. Just dehydrate a bunch of bananas and have like banana chips and stuff.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
she do any of that dehydration?
I don't know.
It's still not,
she
I
has
guess,
like,
fresh, but.
Yeah, like she has like dehydrated like meals and stuff like that for sure.
Lots of nuts too, I would imagine.
Yeah, lots of nuts, breakfast stuff, like things like Cliff Bars. Like she had tons and tons of chocolate bars. That was like her kind of treat at the end of the day that she would have. So,
and would she be eating lots? Would she just be eating meals or just constantly eating? Like I remember when we did our trip when we were canoeing. I mean, we didn't canoe crazy, but we're going for 4 hours or whatever it is. We're just kind of snacking. Just constantly eating stuff, but not like big meals.
Yeah.
Was she doing more of that or
a snack? But then she'd also stop to eat. So she talks about her routine. So this is what she said. So she talks about her routine. So I wake up around sunrise and first check the GPS. Big smiles when I get 3 miles or have been pushed westward overnight by the winds and currents. So I guess that answers that question. Exactly, yeah. So then
which makes sense because what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You have no choice.
Yeah. So then she has her breakfast. So she'll stop for breakfast. She'll like stop for lunch if she's hungry and then have dinner like kind of at the end of the day. And I think she'll just kind of snack throughout the day too. So yeah.
Did she see lots of other boats when she's out there?
It doesn't sound like it. None until she kind of got to the closer to the coast of South America. Then she saw some. So she also talks about she mostly rode naked. Because the salt spray made her clothes like cardboard almost, and
you don't want to get
and then
chafing
it's
or
all chafe. Yeah, exactly.
Like
and
totally naked?
I guess so.
Like not even any underwear?
I don't know. I guess so. So, and then the other.
Was that a plan or is that just something?
No, it was just. I think she just was like, "Oh yeah, this sucks." Yeah.
It's like there's no one around.
Yeah. So, and then again, the other issue is the insomnia that she has. So her little...
Like she developed or...
Well, just because it's so hard to sleep, because I don't 100% understand this, but like the little cabin was like watertight. And so if the boat was made in such a way so that if it got flipped or something in the waves, it would right itself. But in order to be safe at night, she had to have that cabin closed, and so it's watertight.
Yeah.
And so it was so stuffy and hot in there, it was difficult to sleep. And then you have she would have fish hitting the boat. And then at one point there was this is so cool, but like a sea turtle was there kind of hitting against it. So so, and her alarm close to when she was at the coast, the alarm would be going off and that sort of thing too. So
I'd almost want to just sleep under the stars.
Yeah, I know.
Did she do that at all?
I don't think
or maybe
so.
There's risk of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Drowning somehow? I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't.
Or just, I guess you wouldn't want to sleep with that door open because then that would be bad.
Well, yeah,
right?
Because what if you're sleeping and it flips and then you're dead? So, yeah.
But you wouldn't necessarily be dead because it would just right itself.
Well, no, it wouldn't, because that's the point, right? It's watertight. So I think that's part of it.
But the boat itself would always right itself no matter what.
I don't know for sure. I don't, like I said, I don't know enough about the mechanics, but there was something where she had to sleep with it closed. So
I thought that was just to make sure that her cabin doesn't get filled with water if it does tip over.
Well, probably that too.
Yeah.
So, so she talks about, with the routine, and that I really like this too. So my routine frees my mind to confront the physical and mental challenges out here. And so she just knows what to do. There's no like panicking about when something happens. She's just doing what she needs to do. And I think that's the thing with what was that, like decision fatigue? We've talked about that before too. So I think that's really important. And then you just know what you're going to do. And
if you can just go on autopilot, because every time you make a decision, it just takes up some energy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's why a lot of people, like we talked about before, like, Steve Jobs or whatever, it's like always wearing the same clothes every day.
Yes.
Because when you wake up in the morning, you don't want to make all these decisions. Exactly. Right. So you know what you're going to have for breakfast. Your clothes are just laid out and ready to go. It's like, don't make decisions until you have to make an actual real important decision. Right. So you use up your mental energy solving, bigger problems than little ones of what you're going to wear or whatever.
Exactly.
Which end up just drawing your energy and just, yeah. So you're just as fresh for as much as you can for stuff that matters.
Well, and I think because the mental and physical challenges are so huge, like that's, it frees up your mind to just focus and work on
just focus on your tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting too is she said she did some sort of endurance feat in the desert, and she said like there's something about the sameness of like the desert and like the ocean where it just really helps her focus, I guess, to do these endurance things, which I found really interesting because I feel like I'm the complete opposite. Like I need obviously prefer running outside than to prefer just on the treadmill, because you have like the changes in landscape and different things to look at, which distracts you from what you're dealing with kind of thing.
Well, maybe those are two different things. Like one of them is just like visual stimulation that's different, and the other is just like, because I think you can still lay down and focus on things, whether it's the same or whether it's visually stimulating. It's just, I don't know. It's like one question I was going to ask is she even maybe listening to music?
Yeah.
So like if she has music, at least that's something to keep you distracted a little bit on, maybe the pain or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Just like running when you see the different visuals, it just, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. It's not, you're not really thinking, but it's just, just allows your mind to maybe focus a little bit more.
Yeah. And so she even has like a routine for what she listens to.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's kind of cool because so she has audiobooks, she has all kinds of different music that she listens to. She has a bunch of she talks a lot about, she does like a lot of different like she's done like a lot of different meditations, like she meditates, and so even like listening to like Zen teachers lectures and stuff like that, she listens to that to help her get through. And then also she has a bunch of different like movies that she has for if she's just kind of taking a rest in the evening or whatever before she sleeps. And then she also has like comedy specials that she listens to too, which that's a great, I wouldn't have even have thought of that.
Oh yeah.
But that would be amazing. Yeah. I thought that'd be really, really cool.
I feel like doing something like this, I don't know, it's so amazing to me because you're saying, she got all kinds of books, audiobooks, and probably podcasts and whatever, and things to watch. Like the amount of growth that you can have as an individual, I think it's huge. Yes. I mean, I can see people in like a whole lifetime don't get this growth because, number one, you're experiencing what it's like to travel across the Atlantic by yourself. Like in terms of understanding the world and how it works around you, like all the cool things that she said, like I'm listening to this, I'm just like, I want to do it because I, not so much for the physical, I just would love to see it. Right. Cause you're talking about there's fish everywhere and, there's dolphins dancing around. You're seeing sharks all the time, barnacles, and you're just learning about the stuff because you hear about it, but to actually experience it is something completely different
thing. Yeah.
Especially when you hear stuff like, the oceans are dying and whatever, and you see things. Not to say that it's not true that, we're not polluting the oceans or whatever, but to see that, there's still natural, pristine, nice air, where animals are just doing their thing in their natural habitat, to experience that. I mean, it's just the awe and beauty is just amazing. Yeah. And then just you're learning so much about yourself by putting yourself in these situations and having these experiences that are mentally challenging, physically challenging, and then just keeping yourself open to learning new things, while you're there too. It's just, I don't know, it's just amazing. Well, it's just so. It's
interesting because on her inside of her cabin, she has a quote by the French novelist Marcel Proust, and it says, "A real voyage of discovery lies not in finding new landscapes, but in having new eyes." So it's about how the experiences change you and allow you to see things in a different way about yourself, about the world around you. So
that's fantastic.
I loved that quote. I thought that was really awesome.
Because at the end of the day, then it's not about the destination. It's
the journey.
The journey.
Yeah.
Just like if anybody tried to climb Mount Everest and failed, it's not about getting to the top was what makes it a success. Yeah. It's about what did you learn about yourself and how did you grow as a person.
Yeah. And the one thing I enjoyed about the book too is she had a lot of different quotes from like different kind of big thought leaders or successful people. So, and I think she used that on the row also to kind of help her through some things. And so the one quote she's had is from the founder of Intel, Andrew Grove. And it said, "Success breeds complacency. Complacency breeds failure. Only the paranoid survive."
Yep.
And so she says she remains like a little bit paranoid in the ocean, and that obviously paranoia is another form of fear, but it's about how you choose to use it and channel it. And so it's so similar to how we were talking last week with Aunt Middleton, and that using that fear, if you harness it, you can use that energy to drive you forward. So
It's getting that is so true about how success equals complacency leads to failure. And you can see this in all aspects of human life and human civilizations. Like if you look at the past, and I haven't researched this, so I'm probably going to get this a little right, but I think the overall concept is the same. Like a lot of societies, civilizations, they go through cycles. We go through these cycles of like, there's like kind of almost like a major war or conflict after, like 80-year cycle or something like that. Ray Dalio has this great video of this other cycle, but that's more of an economic kind of stuff. But the thing is that you get a generation that comes out of a war. And they know the struggle. They know you have to be vigilant. You have to work hard, so they go through that. Then that generation, then they have kids. So then those guys, they work hard, and then their kids have a better life than their parents. They might still know because maybe those parents made them work hard or whatever.
Yeah.
But then those guys have kids, and then they're removed from struggle. They're removed from how hard life used to be like. And then all of a sudden, then you have, softer kids or softer people that don't experience things. And then what are their troubles, right? They're thinking that like, oh, well, I don't, just think of today, what people are complaining about like, oh, my life is so hard because whatever. And it's like, you have no idea what a hard life is. Did you have to wake up at 4:00 in the morning and plow fields for 12 hours a day so you can harvest food because you die without it? All this stuff. And then all of a sudden, then you have a decline of society because it's just people that don't really know how to work hard because and then there's conflict happens and then the cycle starts all over again, right?
Well, it's interesting. So there's two things. This is very general, and I've general and then a specific one. So the general is there's that quote, hard times make strong men.
Hard times make hard men, yeah.
Yeah, and then easy times make soft men.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then there's another quote, something, I'm not going to say it right now. I don't even really know it 100%, but there's something like wealth is lost. Like if you like work hard and you get wealthy, then that wealth then is lost within like 2 generations because those people aren't working hard for anything because it's just been given to them.
Yeah. Or they're not teaching on the skills that they need.
Yeah.
So that's also a different thing. I think Gary Vaynerchuk, I think he said something like, "Oh, my kids aren't getting anything or whatever because I want them to work hard." Yeah. And I totally get that. I think there's some kind of medium somewhere.
I think so.
But it makes a good point. It's like, I'm just not going to give my kids money and they're just going to sit there, do nothing and become just like entitled brats. You know, like you've seen these entitled brats.
100%.
They're everywhere.
I know.
They just feel like the world just owes them everything and they don't get their way. Then, I experienced it when I was just TAing at the university.
Yeah.
Kids are blatantly cheating, copying off each other.
Yeah.
And nothing happens.
No.
They just get whatever they want. Just cry hard enough. Sorry.
Yeah.
Before it used to be if you cheated, you're out.
Yep. 100%. You're done.
Now it's like, oh, well, maybe we need to find other ways to motivate them. Or they're anyways.
So the one quote that she says here, intense physical challenges can help us better discover who we are. They give us confidence that no obstacle is too great for the human spirit to overcome. The price of confidence is the acceptance of some risk and danger. So I thought that was really apt as well. So you have to accept that there's going to be risk and danger and struggle, but then the bonus is you get that confidence in your abilities to know what you can do. So
100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So the one thing she says that, and this was part of my little bit of my beef with the book.
Okay. A little bit of controversy. A little bit of beef.
A little bit. So I'm reading through it and I'm just like, I'm not hearing a lot of like her struggle. Like it's all about like, you know, the lessons she's learning, but I'm not really hearing a lot about like her actual like physical struggles, like what's, you know, like she talks a little bit about blisters, but like not much. And I'm like, I'm not hearing a lot about like how difficult it was.
So, well, before maybe you answer
Okay.
this, maybe I could say,
Sure.
ask something. I think that doing that would be infinitely easier than doing 100 marathons in one day, or
I
any of these
agree.
crazy cycling trips
I
or
agree.
whatever. Because I feel like when you're rowing, especially if you're by yourself, you can kind of take it easy. You don't always have to go all the time, and there's no set. I mean, you want to do it in a certain amount of time, but I feel like it's not as difficult as doing something that, I don't know, you know, just like constantly running or pounding your knees on the pavement or whatever.
Yes, so fair. But then she says,
Don't get me wrong. It's still very difficult.
Yeah. So, but then what she says is that she says like she's never been one to share like her darker thoughts or like despair, anything like that. And she says, what gives me the right to share my moments of sadness when compared to so many people in this world? My problems are minor. So I don't agree with this because it's all about perspective. And like, I don't mind if someone complains to me about their first world problems because like they're still problems. And I don't think it's fair to compare. Like, yes, obviously the purpose of her rowing is for these people who don't have clean water. And that's just like a basic human right. And so I understand, and especially like she's been to countries like Kenya, and so she's seen this type of suffering, and I think that would definitely give you a different perspective on what you're dealing with. But I still think it's important to talk about it. Like, it's still, you're still struggling. You're rowing across the fucking ocean. It's okay to say it was tough and these were my hard moments. So
it's almost like there's this thing where if you don't experience it, like, you're not allowed to talk about it, which is completely, I think it's the wrong way to go. And we've talked about this a little bit before when we talk about, you know, like racism, where it's like, oh, well, unless you're of this skin color or whatever, you can't even talk about it. It's like, no, that is not true at all. You can still understand what racism is and say that something is bad or whatever, just because you haven't lived through it. And you know what? There's always going to be somebody that has a harder life than you. There's always going to be somebody that has harder. So does that mean no one's allowed to talk about any of their hardships ever? I mean, by talking about things, that's how people learn. And, you know, if I was to do this trip and I would read her book, I'd be like, I want to get prepared for whatever. And then I read the book. I'm like, oh, there's nothing here that says about what the actual challenges were. How is that going to help me do this thing again? Because maybe I want to do something for good. I want to row for charity or whatever. And if I can't get that information, where am I going to get it from? I'm not going to go to the starving child that grew up without parents because they had it bad, so no one else wants to talk. You know, like, you need to have that information, and it's okay to talk about things in your life that were bad or that were struggles, because they were struggles for you. And I don't think anyone should deny, you know,
regardless
what they
who
went
you
through.
are.
You know, and I mean, the world is unfair. Life is unfair. It's not designed for everyone to be exactly the same, because we're not exactly the same. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. And hopefully there's things that we can do in our society to give everyone equal opportunity. But the outcomes are never going to be the same. And they shouldn't be promoted as to be the same. And you should not try to prop yourself down just for whatever reason. You might think that it's okay, because it's not. You're just doing yourself a disservice, I think, anyways. And then you're doing other people a disservice. That's my opinion, but I you know, I see the point too. I mean, the same thing we struggle with. It's like, oh, I'm going to talk about my problems. It's like, oh, you know, like we talk about sometimes. It's like, we did the groceries and we don't have any room in the fridge. It's like, what the hell? What are we going to do now? You know, it's like, who are we? I mean, I guess we don't we joke around, but you know what I mean?
Every time I say that, it's a joke because I'm just like, how freaking lucky, especially from where we've come from. It's just like, this is such a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
I never once take that for granted.
Oh,
but
no,
I think
I
that's.
I was just giving an example for people's problems.
But I think it's if you've gone through that struggle of having an empty fridge, and then every time you do groceries,
the blessing of,
you understand it, and it's like how far we've come. So
yeah.
So she does talk about like and the reason she brings that up is because she did get to a really rough point where she had to call a friend, and her friend kind of helped talk her through because I'm
sure there was a point where she wanted to quit.
She did. And the biggest problem,
and why is that? I want to know. That's what what I want to learn from you.
Yeah. So she kind of, it's really similar to when the Iron Cowboy had his breakdown, it sounded to me, where she kind of lost sight of what she was doing. She's all alone, so isolated. I think that sounds like it was one of the hardest things for her, not necessarily like the physically of rowing, but it was just like she's just all alone. And so that loneliness of not having anyone to kind of cheer you on.
That being said, I think I would relish in it.
Well, and she does
70 days of no human contact.
Like she does. And she talks about the difference between loneliness and solitude and how those things are very different.
Yeah.
And then like for her, some like donations weren't necessarily coming in, which was similar for Iron Cowboy and his trying to raise money as well.
But she didn't raise as much money as she wanted to.
Yeah. So, and then like she was having issues with the rudder, like for the boat, and then sleeping was rough. Yeah. So those things. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, it's not. There's a reason why only 700 people in the world have tried it. You know, you need to put that in perspective. Like, if you look at the NHL, it's like the top 700 players in the world. And like, that's it, right? So that's like what she did is like NHL level caliber of like pretty much next to impossible.
Yeah.
So to do something like that is something worth celebrating. And I think it's important to speak openly and honestly about the troubles that you had and be honest with yourself and be like, it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay that you went through the struggle.
Yeah. Especially, and I think the point is because her goal and her motivation behind it is trying to raise money for people that just need basic, clean, fresh water. And so what you're doing is so remarkable to help these people. It has such a noble cause behind it. So
yeah, it's, I mean, fantastic cause. This is totally a different thing, but there's so much stuff about charities themselves, and like how many billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars have been raised, but yet like no water. Like nobody's just drilling wells. Like it's not okay. It's not rocket science.
So she gets into this a little bit. So how the book is even kind of structured is the middle part is all about the water crisis, and each day she talks about more information about the water crisis and about all the different crazy stats that are involved in this. And so she first became interested in water when she was in Australia, and one of the lectures she heard was that the wars of the future are going to be fought over clean water and fresh water, and some already are. And so this kind of shocked her, and then she started like looking more into it and like the stats behind it, like, and I won't go through all the stats. It's insane, some of the stats, but basically over 1 billion people struggle each day to get the minimum life sustaining amount of water. And there's so many other implications to this because it's not just drinking water. That's the basics,
no, if
right?
you look at the amount of water that a human needs, drinking water is like 2% of your daily requirements for everything else you need for cooking, cleaning, hygiene, all that stuff.
Well, and she said like there's some countries where people don't even name their kids when they're born right away because they don't have like the water is so contaminated they may die from diarrheal diseases. So it's
good reason to breastfeed or whatever. I mean, kids shouldn't be drinking water anyways at the start.
No.
When they're babies.
So so sanitation is a big issue as well as hygiene. So the one thing she talked about also that
proper sanitation. I wonder if that kills more people than clean access to drinking water, because that's even like getting rid of your waste.
But then there's other considerations that like I didn't really think about either. especially for women. So when girls start menstruating in some of these countries where there are no sanitation areas, they stop going to school because it's, you know, the embarrassment of it, right? Then not only that, some of the women will not go to the bathroom during the day because there may not be like a private place to go. And so they go at night, which leaves them open to attack, either like from sexual assault. And so then that's also an issue. So can you imagine not feeling safe enough to just go to the bathroom? Like that's unacceptable. So and just like human dignity, just having a place where you can take a shit, like.
But the thing is I have no idea how to solve these problems, but is charity organizations the way to go, or is it pushing actual corrupt governments to actually do something for their people?
So,
you know,
yes,
like, again, I don't want to,
I know,
I mean, to talk about,
I know
there's lots of different countries in Africa as an example, but Africa's like the richest continent.
I know,
like the oil, diamonds, like natural resources, like everything, but yet it's so poor. But yet the people that are leaders are rich beyond belief.
I know.
And their people are poor. Like, what good is donating to charity and be like, okay, we're going to just drill a well here? It's like, that's not going to solve the problem.
Well, and so she talks a little bit about this, and she says 35 to 40% of the water projects fail within 2 to 5 years because they're not followed up on by the charities. And so fewer than 5% of the organizations actually follow up on their programs, which is ridiculous. And then
it could just be taken over, like they drill a well or whatever, and then some crime organization comes in and is like, this is our water now. Yeah.
And so she, like, for her, she will go, what she's raised money for, she herself personally will go and take a look and see and follow up and make sure things are still happening. But she rode for the charity, I forget what it was called.
Is it Matt Damon's charity there?
I don't actually know. One was like, so she raised $125,000 for Blue Planet Network. The other one she worked for was H2O for Life, which was another organization. So she seemed to think that those ones were decent ones that were helping people. There's another organization she talked about called Aqua Clara, where it actually they do some type of like entrepreneurial thing where they have the people that live there open up like little like training centers almost or something. So they make money, but then they're also like empowering everyone to kind of figure stuff out for themselves. So that's interesting as well. Yeah. But what she does talk about, this is interesting because she talks about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just like we talked about with Ross Edgley. And so I think that helps her kind of get back after she has that kind of dark time. It helps her like what's motivating her, what's pushing her to do it. And it's that helping others, that peak of the self-actualization, that peak of the of Maslow's pyramid. So that helps her kind of keep going. So, so I thought that was kind of interesting. So then at the end, it ends up the waves are crazy out. They're like 30-foot waves. And she's like, I can't get into Cayenne, French Guiana. Like I'm going to crash the boat, or I'll have to get a tow when I'm like so close. And then it's not worth it. So
you got to find the right time.
So she ends up having to row like 2 countries over and she lands in Georgetown, Guyana, not French Guiana, but Guyana. So there's French Guiana, then Suriname, then Guyana.
Okay.
Which
so
is where she
more
goes.
North?
Yeah. So that's where she ends up, and her dad and her brother meet her there, and then she's
like, could
done.
she can see the shore from there, but she just can't break those waves, right?
I'm not sure. Yeah. So. Yeah. So.
And that's another thing. It's just like learning about ocean waves and how it works. Because when you're in the open ocean, I think it's not bad. Because I hear the waves could be big, but they're like really spaced apart, just because there's no sea floor or whatever to make them swell up.
Well, that's the
high,
thing,
right?
is
that's you get closer to the shore.
But that's what happens is when those waves get high, it's because of where like the continental shelf,
where the ground is.
Yeah. So that's exactly
the closer you get to shore.
Yeah. So
that's one thing I learned from Tom Hanks trying to escape the island. You have to get past those breaks because. Anyways.
Yeah. So a couple of the tips she has for overcoming internal obstacles. that I really liked was don't question whether you can do it or not.
Just do it.
You won't know until you try. And so redefine failure as failing to try, which I think is really great. Mm-hmm. For her, it was breaking things down into like manageable, like hourly goals, which I think is what we were talking about with people failing within 100 miles.
Yep. There was one quote from the movie National Treasure, which of course is perfect to bring up. But I just remember that he was talking about Edison. It's like, oh, he didn't fail to make the light bulb. You just discovered like 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Yes. So it's like you didn't fail. You just discovered that that's just not the right way to achieve your goal.
Yes. Yeah. Nothing is personal. Like it's not out to get you. It's just, it is what it is, which we've talked about before.
Life is life.
Yep.
You get what you put into it, really.
Yeah.
For the most part, anyways, unless you get unlucky. But yeah.
The challenge is you. The only thing that holds you back is you and how you react to the situation, which 100%. So, and she says, we are all called by our passions and compelled to expose our inner souls. The process makes us vulnerable and strong and human. The Atlantic Ocean has exposed my soul in ways nothing else could. It stripped me naked, literally. It broke me to the point that I was ready to quit. And from that point of utter rawness, it showed me the absolute beauty of what life is all about. So I thought that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So, and then she writes an epilogue about like 5 years later. And so when she got back, of course, there was like all kinds of press and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Glamour named her Woman of the Year. And so she did a ton of interviews, all kinds of different speaking engagements to raise even more money. So she raised over $250,000 for different water projects in South and Central America. When she wrote this, she was working towards an MBA at Cleveland State University.
Oh yeah.
And so
and she got it? Did she finish?
I think so. And so what she's done since, so she continues to do like ultra endurance stuff. And so in 2020, she became the first woman to run nonstop across New Hampshire in 11 hours. And
the first woman to do that?
Yeah. Then again, the first person to run nonstop across Maine in 33 hours. And then in 2021.
When you say like nonstop, that's literally like not stopping even to tie your shoe, or is it like, well, I just ran without going? Like, did you stop to go to the bathroom? Like, how, you know what I mean? Like,
it's
just like I'm just running and I'm going. I'm not going to stop, as in like take a break or or you're eating on the go. Maybe just like bathroom stop is like the only thing.
I mean, you have to go to the bathroom at some point.
Or maybe did you change your shoes even? I don't even know.
I don't know. So then she also, 2021, she broke the female world record for most consecutive ultra marathons in a row by completing 11 daily 31-mile runs. So 11 31-mile runs.
That's just a little bit more than a marathon, right? A marathon's 26?
Yes.
26.6, right?
Yes. Yep.
It's a little bit more than a marathon every day for how many days?
11 days.
11 days?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy though, because that's not like, didn't the cowboy do 100?
Yeah.
And that wasn't even just marathons. That was Ironmans.
Yeah, Ironmans. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's crazy.
So
the difference between like the male physiology and the female physiology, like what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
Physically, anyways.
Yeah. So
it's crazy. Yeah, when you get to those edges of the limits, of the differences between men and women, it's crazy.
Yeah. And so and so she continues to try and raise money for water, and she speaks, and she was on Rogan there, I think it was 2021, and I've just finished listening. So
Rebecca, I was listening to everything that you said. Yes.
So so that's the book.
Cool. So how old is she now?
I think she's 33, 34.
Married? Anything like that?
I don't think so. No, I don't think she is. So
good for her. We need more people like her in this world, doing things, raising awareness for things. Again, I don't have the answers as to how we're going to solve these problems. I don't think people donating money is the way to go. But that's a whole nother issue.
It sounds like
Like
she's
helps, but
more
it's,
of like a hands-on person
which is
as
good,
well.
which is
It's
a lot
not
better,
just like I'm just gonna raise this money. It's like she's going to these different countries, she's helping, she's following up.
Oh, for sure.
Which I think is really important.
For sure.
So, and I think she there was like one of the chapters or one of the days she talks about teaching a man how to fish rather than just whatever that saying is. Yeah. Teach a man how to fish and he'll
catch a fish for someone to eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, so eat for a life or whatever.
So that she talks about that and how important that is, rather than just throwing money at a problem. Like that's not gonna solve it. Yep. So she's
and there's this thing in I think it's Start With Why. It's Simon Sinek's book, and they talk about like people's desire for change and wanting to get to a goal, and he talks about. Look at the Wright brothers who were the first people to fly. And they were actually in competition with this other group that was like fully funded, had like so much more money, resources, the top engineers or whatever, but they failed. Yet these guys who were just like two guys in a barn, ended up doing it because it's, they're driven, they're passionate, that they had the right reasons and motivations to do something. Yeah. So, which again, it sounds like she does, had the head screwed on straight in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how's the book? 1 to 10.
So
just as a read.
So it's a pretty easy, pretty fast read because it's like 70 days and maybe like the longest one was like 13 pages, like on the Kobo. Anyways, I don't know what that translates to.
Like a real page. Yeah.
So it was a pretty fast read. Like I said about the struggle, that was one thing that, I wanted to know.
You wanted to know, yeah, for sure.
I don't know why. I think she's incredible and what she's done is incredible. She's done so many incredible things. Mm-hmm. For some reason though, I couldn't connect with her in the book. And I don't know if that's because she wasn't really talking about struggle and going a little bit more personal and getting deep. I don't know if it was like that.
It sounds like it could easily be, because when you read someone's stories, you kind of want to know about them as a person and how their obstacles affected them and then how they overcame that. Yes. And if she's just talking about, here's some really cool quotes from these guys, it's like, I can read those self-help books or whatever on my own.
Yeah, and she talked about how she used them to help her, which was great, but I just still felt like I'm missing that connection.
Yeah, you're telling me how you use it to help you, but you didn't even tell me what the problem was in the first place and how you use those things to solve that particular problem or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like it sounds like it's just missing that element.
Yeah. She talks about this a little bit of the struggle, but I don't know. It was for some reason I just had a harder time kind of connecting. And even when she was on Rogan, I've kind of felt the same way. It was just I found a little bit hard to kind of connect with her.
Maybe she just really has that mentality of I'm not gonna complain about my struggles and I'm not gonna talk about it because so many other people don't have clean, which maybe makes sense in the way that what she's trying to do is coming from a really good place.
Yes. And that's what I think. I think it was more about getting the word out about this is such a huge problem and we really need to, I want to focus on that. This, not on me.
So it's not like it's necessarily a bad thing, right? But you just I guess it depends on what you want, right? Are you reading this book because you want to learn more about how people have struggles, what they are and how they overcome them, as opposed to hey, here's somebody who just did something really cool that's helping. That's a cool story. I just want to learn more about it. So I think it depends on where you're coming from too. Mm-hmm. But anyways, of course the question is, how is it as just a book, 1 to 10? So you give it a
6.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think that's one of the lower scores we've had.
Yeah, it's one of the lower scores. Yep. Yeah. So it's worth a read, because I said, it's a fast read.
Well, 6.5. That's if you don't pick it up, you've heard it. You've kind of heard it here. Yeah. It just saved you. I don't know how fast you read. It depends. For you, it's like a day. For me, it's saved me 3 months. In terms of Adventure Time and is this? You're already shaking your head. Is this a 0?
Hard no.
That's a hard no.
So that
okay.
I think this is the other thing that I found interesting too, because I think the thing too is I went into with the expectation like I want to hear how fucking crazy the ocean was. I want to hear about these crazy rogue waves are like 100 feet high. Like, did you get tossed around? Was there any crazy storms?
Yeah.
Like, and maybe I had that expectation going into
Could
it.
be. Because you got none of that.
So and maybe she just got lucky because she got like really good weather. So because she started in January, and so she missed.
Well, she probably planned that to not go during hurricane season.
Of course.
Yeah.
So she missed the storm season, which obviously planning.
It's like, when should we do this? How about when there's always hurricanes? That sounds like a great idea.
Sounds like a good plan. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so for me, it's I don't know, man, the ocean is really fucking scary. It freaks me out to know that there's so much shit going on underneath. Like, that's terrifying to me.
But it's also so open. It's so vast. I don't think, like we were talking earlier, like I don't think it's like every second there's like so much life that it's like, I don't know, especially not now, especially because there's been so much fishing or whatever, right?
Yeah,
but I think there's sometimes where it's just calm, or like you're really deep ocean where there might not be. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. But I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Would you do it?
So
yes, you would.
I have no desire to like row, but I would absolutely 100%, 10 out of 10, want to sail across the Atlantic. Why not?
I can think of like many reasons.
Like what? Oh, the pirates are going to come. It's like
100%.
Yeah, because did she get pirated?
No, but she did have a couple moments when she was getting close to South America where there was like boats of guys like staring at her. So that's weird.
Yeah. Does she have a gun?
No.
You should bring a gun. Yeah, well, I'm just saying. A little defense. Little defense, little offense. But like sailing around the Atlantic, just being able to have a boat. And like we walk along the harbor here, and you see these boats that, you have the American flag or whatever, and they're coming from all over the world. Like, to live like that, to be free, to be able to take your home, and just not even have to be your home, but just, I mean, and I'm not talking about a rubber dinghy boat. I'm talking about like a nice, like catamaran boat, right? Yeah, that has like 3 beds. It's like it's a boat.
Yeah,
and you're just sailing across even the Atlantic, and you go to places that are like just so beautiful, pristine. You could visit islands all over the place. And just experience adventure.
No, I'd prefer to drive along the coast and go to the beaches.
But that's boring. Why wouldn't you want to go to a beach of an island that only a handful of people have been to, because it's so remote and it's just like amazing, and you're there and there's like fish everywhere, dolphins.
It just freaks me out.
Yeah, I mean, but use your fear, right?
I think it's because like obviously like camping and going in the wilderness and stuff, like we've done a little bit stuff like that, but I guess it's because I know more and there's not like the chance of drowning, or do you know what I mean? I don't know why it's different. I think it's because for me the ocean is just so unknown, and all of that sea stuff is unknown. I think if you had,
that's why we work up to it. If we were to do it, I'm like, okay, we've never done this before. Let's just sail across the Atlantic. Even I am not that. I know. Who am I kidding? I would still do it.
I was gonna say, you would still do it.
But I would still like. It's like Alex Honnold doing his climbs. Mm-hmm. He didn't just do it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't just go buy a boat. Like, I've never sailed before. Let's just go. Mm-hmm. I would take like, no, I would, it would take like at least a year where I would take lessons and I would learn, you gotta learn all of it, how to boat, how to work a boat, how to sail or whatever. I don't even know any of the language. I don't even know like how fast is a knot. I don't even know.
Do you know how to tie knots? That's kind of a big thing.
Hey, I'll learn to be.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just have never had like the desire to. And
then you can sail, like people do even trips, like you sail, like through the St. Lawrence, and you go through all the Great Lakes and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's a safe place to learn.
Mm-hmm. No.
Well, we're doing it.
No, not interested.
Well, what are you not? You're just gonna stay home. You're coming. You're just not gonna come.
Anyway.
You're not gonna come. Of course you're going to come.
I don't like the idea of going across. Like, going along the coasts, that to me is safer than just you're in the middle of the fucking ocean.
But the safest, that's where, like, on the coast is where all the pirates are.
I don't know.
And you're in the
There's no
middle of
safe
the
place.
ocean.
There's
It's not
no
like
safe
pirates are
place.
like, where's the best place to go? Let's just go to the middle of the ocean. No. People are all along the coast. That's where the danger is.
There's danger everywhere.
You're right. Let's just stay in our little
I
bubble
need my
here.
bubble.
Yeah, you're
Let me
right.
stay
Why
in my
would we
bubble.
do anything? Let's look at statistics. How many more people die on the road than they die in the ocean?
Well, let's look at what is the proportion, though. That's a different thing.
Proportion by represent. It's still more. What about all the gun violence? You're not gonna have gun violence on the open seas. Here I am telling you, like, does she have a gun?
I know,
She should have lots of guns.
Someone's gonna die. I'm sure someone would die.
I'm like, there's a boat. Open fire. I got a problem. I ain't got no problem there. No.
Get the cannons.
Yeah, does she have cannons? Where does she keep her cannons on this rowboat? Yeah, so we'll just get a boat with cannons. That's fine.
Made me think about that stupid movie.
They're all stupid.
The one where on the cannon on like that really old boat that was flying in the.
Oh God!
What was that
Which
movie?
one?
The new
Uncharted.
One Uncharted.
It's the worst movie. They're all the worst movies. We just talked about the
everyone-
other day. I haven't seen a good movie in a long time.
I know.
I think it was that 9 Days was probably one of the better
9
movies.
Days. Which one?
The
was
one
that?
where the people
Oh, is that what
are-
it was called?
or nine. I think
Nine
so.
Souls or something like
9
that?
Days.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
movie where these people, they're not even people, they're just entities.
Mm-hmm.
They have to go through a 9-day process to be interviewed by somebody who
Yes.
used to be alive
Yes.
to get the right to be born.
Yeah.
Like, it was really a
But
cool
it was a really
concept.
good movie. It was really
So they're
good.
not alive or they're not dead. I don't know what they are, but they didn't really explain it, but that's not kind of the point. The point is to humanity and blah, 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 whatever. I don't know. But anyways,
last
that
good movie that we saw. It's like
yeah.
It was like months and months ago.
Yeah, even Spider-Man part, it was just like, yeah. And I feel like that one got so much hype.
Yeah, there were
Which
so
it
many
did.
holes in
Well,
that
just
one.
because, I mean, it was fun because you see all the Spider-Mans together. So that was kind of cool. But I think it also was so hyped because, number one, it was pandemic and everyone was just like, oh, let's just get out. And then it was like, all the movies are just so crap now that it's like finally something that was really good. It's like overcompensated, like how good it actually is. I just felt that way. I don't know. Like,
Anyways,
it was entertaining. But yeah,
you
it's
are rambling.
good movies. We just love watching movies.
Yes.
But so there's that movie, which of course is unrealistic. But there's that other one. Remember the one with Matthew McConaughey and Penelope Cruz?
Sahara?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another one where they get this boat that's been they find the
Oh,
boat
yeah.
because they're looking for the treasure.
Yeah.
And they find the boat that was in the desert.
I know.
And it was like the 1800s
Yeah.
boat or whatever.
I know.
And what do? They have a cannon and they shoot the cannon at a helicopter, like this,
No.
200-year-old cannonball.
I'll allow it. It's cool.
Well, anyways. It had the boat
Anyways.
flying directly at the one cannon. That's the thing with cannons. You just like, it's not hard to move away. Anyways.
Anyway.
Yeah, so you need cannons on boats. So at some point, I would love to go on a trip on a boat. So we'll get a boat and then you'll learn and then you'll get comfortable and then we'll go.
Well, if you get a yacht that has helicopter pad, I'm down.
Yeah, and we could use a yacht and a helicopter pad and we could go boating around the world telling everybody that they're polluting too much.
Yes. Yeah.
Keep your carbon footprint down while I go on my fucking yacht and helicopter. Fuck you.
Okay.
Fuck you.
Oh, jeez. I've triggered you.
I just get
Calm
so
down. Calm
pissed
down.
off.
You're going to have a stroke.
Oh, God.
Okay.
No, a reasonable boat that
Okay.
sails. A sailboat,
Okay.
not a yacht. I don't want a yacht.
Okay. I do.
Good luck. Good luck to you, sir. Good luck to you, sir. And
Oh, Chris by 5.
Chris, high five. Let's go. Let's get it done.
Did it.
Wow. You're
Yeah.
getting good at high-fiving. Should feel good, strong and proud.
Strong and proud.
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
If you love what we do, head us up. Hit us up.
Or
Head over to odumandandrea.com. We appreciate your support and just listening to us. We
Absolutely.
just love it. Tell your friends. Tell your family.
Tell your
I
friends.
don't know. Tell your friends about me. And I don't have anything else to say.
No.
So with that, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week.
Bye.